September 11th, 1995. It's a sleepy Monday morning in Videtta, Georgia, a rural crossroads between Savannah and Atlanta.
It was just a little small community.
It probably didn't have a population of over 200.
There was a flashing light in the main intersection and a convenience store, but mostly it's agricultural.
This morning, the sun still hangs low over the horizon when Jasmine Jenkins pulls up outside the home of her sister, Brenda Palmer.
It was their practice that her sister would come pick her up in the morning and they would go over into Jefferson County where they worked at a sewing plant.
But today, when Jasmine arrives, Brenda isn't waiting outside.
Come on, Brenda!
She blew the horn, no one answered.
Thinking her sister had overslept, Jasmine goes to the door.
We're going to be late!
The front door is slightly open. And she starts to get like this funny feeling that something is not right.
Brenda?
She's at the door, no one answered. So she went in there.
She sees Brenda's teenage daughter, Christine, who normally sleeps in the front room.
Only she wasn't asleep.
She was laying in the bed with a bullet hole in her head.
In a panic, Jasmine runs back to Brenda's bedroom.
She looked inside the other room and she seen my sister stretched out.
She had 2 bullet wounds to the head.
31-year-old Brenda Jenkins Palmer had always been a small-town girl.
We grew up in the country part of Videtta. Everybody got along. I mean, it was just a little great town.
Though life wasn't always easy for Brenda growing up, she was always surrounded by love.
Her father passed, then my father passed. So the 2 families, my mom and her mother, sisters, we kind of grew up together like sisters and brothers.
As the oldest of her siblings, Brenda learned to pull her weight at a young age.
She helped take care of her other siblings. When we was younger, she got a job. She did all that, running around and paid the bills for the family, helping out as much as she could.
And she always set a good example.
She was a church-going person. She wasn't the type of person that caused trouble. She always been there to help somebody. She was just a great all-around person.
She was also an outstanding mother.
She had a child at a young age.
The father was never in Christine's life, so brother played both roles in raising her daughter.
Under her mother's loving care, Christine thrived.
They spent a lot of time together. Brother kept Christine in the church.
Christine was a good student. She was on the honor roll and in the marching band. She was apparently a very happy person.
And Brenda was happy too. But there was one thing missing.
Brenda was looking for love.
And then she found it with an older man named Willie Palmer.
Willie, he had like a little club that he served food and stuff.
What can I get you?
I don't know. I've never been here before.
Well, I'm the owner. Ask me anything.
This is your place?
Absolutely.
He was from a well-known family in that area.
You grew up around here?
Yeah, just down the road where I grew up.
I can't believe we've never met.
I know, right? You're gorgeous, by the way.
They hit it off. It was like almost love at first sight.
As the couple grew closer, they formed a beautiful blended family.
He seemed to accept Brenda's daughter, Christine, and Brenda accepted his 3 children from a previous marriage.
Brenda also grew close to Willie's teenage nephew, Frederico.
Hey, Brenda, can you pick me up after practice today?
Sure, hon.
All right. Hey, I'll see y'all.
She actually loved Freddie. She did a lot of good things for him.
Before long, Brenda and Willie married and bought some property out in the country.
It was 5 or 6 acres all together.
It's a nice piece of land.
And a new home wasn't all the couple had to celebrate.
The baby came along. They was doing good. He was good to Brenda.
But now Brenda's sister has just walked into a horrific scene.
Brenda's daughter was shot in the face in her bed, and then Brenda was shot in the head.
Oh, thank God.
Miraculously, Brenda's infant daughter was unharmed.
She was just lying on the bed, not obviously realizing what had happened.
Then, trying to collect herself, Jasmine picks up the phone to call 911.
This is 1995, so all she had was a landline.
What the?
But when she picks it up, there's no dial tone.
What? The phone line is dead.
In 1995, after raising her daughter Christine as a single mom, 31-year-old Brenda Jenkins Palmer had found happiness again with her new husband, 42-year-old Willie Palmer.
Willie and Brenda also had a 1-year-old daughter of their own.
It was a great blended family.
But now, Brenda's sister has walked into a horrifying scene inside her sister's home.
Brenda was lying on the floor. She had 2 bullet wounds to the head. Christine, she had been shot in the face.
However, Brenda and Willie's baby girl was unharmed.
That child was on the bed with the daughter, Christine.
With the home phone dead, Brenda's sister takes the baby and races out the door.
This is 1995 in rural Georgia, so few people had cell phones.
She ran back out the door and ran to the local convenience store, and she told him to dial 911.
But when first responders reach the tiny rural crossroads where Brenda lives, there's no saving her or her daughter.
They're both pronounced dead at the scene.
Get her out of here. Yes. Ma'am, why don't you come with me?
And while Brenda's little girl appears unharmed, first responders tending to her in the ambulance decide to transport her to the hospital, just to be sure.
They also allowed Brenda's sister to accompany the child.
She was crying. She couldn't talk.
Please, and GBI.
Given the magnitude of the case, Burke County Police call in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
The GBI took over in the investigation because it was a double murder and a little bit more complex.
It takes time for agents to reach the remote location, deep in the Georgia countryside.
I couldn't see the house from the road because of a twisty driveway that led from the highway to the house.
When we arrived, we kind of did a walk through the scene.
The first thing the investigators notice is the broken lock on the front door.
The door was kicked in.
And inside the door was the first victim, Brenda's daughter, Christine.
Right there in that front room, it was a little twin-sized bed.
She was partially sitting up in the bed, and I could see a wound on her face. There was blood on the bed and a little bit of blood spatter on the other side.
In the line of business, some are worse than the others, and this was one of the worst ones, especially when you see a 15-year-old kid shot in the face.
Examining her, I noted on top of a sheet that was covering her leg a cartridge casing.
The investigators bagged the shell casing as evidence before heading into the next room.
And there was Brenda lying on the floor.
There was some sheets that her feet had gotten tangled into.
She was obviously pulled out of bed.
There was blood coming from her head.
She had 2 bullet wounds.
Nearby, the investigators find 2 more cartridge casings that are a match for the one they found in Christine's bed.
They were 22 long rifle casings.
Then, after finding the phone line dead, the investigators head outside to check the wiring.
There was a telephone interface box attached to the house. This interface box would be where the wire comes from the telephone company, and you would run wires into the house for the telephone service.
But in this case, the box had been opened and the wires disconnected.
Suspecting the killer had disconnected the phone before heading inside, the investigators removed the interface box from the house.
We took the telephone interface box to be processed for a fingerprint.
That may eventually give investigators the suspect's identity. But the motive behind the murders remains a mystery.
You don't know if it's a robbery gone bad or whatever.
And it's not like there are any potential witnesses nearby.
She lived in an isolated area down this 2-lane dirt logging road.
However, the investigators do have someone to turn to.
Hey, you need to let me out, huh?
Brenda's family has begun to gather outside the crime scene tape.
I got a call from my cousin. Something really bad happened down here in Videtta.
What's going on?
Unfortunately, Brenda and Christine were murdered.
It just shocked me. I didn't know what to think or what to do. I mean, it just like everybody almost lost it.
Everybody was getting all upset and talking crazy and everything, man. It was a bad day for the whole family.
But as Brenda's brother speaks with the investigators, his shock quickly turns to suspicion.
Who do you think might have done this?
Her husband, Willie Palmer.
He was the first one came to my mind.
The relationship between the two was very volatile.
She had filed for divorce.
Jenkins Palmer has just told Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents that they believe her husband, Willie Palmer, was behind the shooting that killed her and her daughter, Christine.
I was just about 95% sure what had happened was because of him.
Willie was the most obvious because of the problems they were having.
According to the family, Brenda had recently filed for divorce.
They say that things between Willie and Brenda had started off well.
When they first started, their relationship was great. From what I saw, they was doing good and everything.
They were living up in Gulf, which is a different community than Videtta.
But not long after the baby was born, Brenda and the girls moved out.
She didn't give me an explanation. She never would go into details on nothing.
She never told me why.
Was she abusive?
She didn't mention no abuse to us.
However, Brenda's actions suggest the answer may be yes.
Brenda had to get a restraining order against him.
And when Willie violated it, she had him arrested.
He was sent to county jail.
And while he was in jail, Brenda looked for a new place for her and her daughters to live.
She tried to make sure that he would not be able to find her.
In a big city, that might mean a women's shelter, but not deep in rural Georgia.
She had to just find a small house somewhere out in the middle of nowhere.
And she found it at the end of a dirt road on the outskirts of Videtta.
The residence was basically a 2-room shack.
It's a sad thing to know that somebody had to live in it, and even sadder that somebody died in it.
It was only supposed to be temporary.
From what she told me, she had money saved up and she was working on getting her a better place.
But she'd barely settled in when her cousin learned that Willie was out of jail.
I walked in the house and I said, "Brother," I said, "I just seen him." She said, "That can't be. Ain't no way." I said, "I just seen him at the phone booth." And she sat there for a minute and I said, "I just want to let you know he out." And she acted like it wasn't really nothing serious about it.
When was that?
Couple days ago.
That actually was my last conversation with her. I don't know if she was frightened or concerned or what, but I know 2 days later, all this happened.
And now that Brenda and her daughter are dead, the family is convinced that Willie had something to do with it.
So you think that he came out here to the house and killed her?
It had to be him.
He was trying to find her, but he didn't know where she was at. How he found out about it, I don't know.
Had Willie shot and killed his estranged wife and stepdaughter?
The pending divorce did give him a possible motive.
And that's not the only thing that suggests he might be responsible.
That Brenda Palmer and Christine were shot and killed, but the baby was not, indicated that there was a reason for the baby not to be killed.
The investigators suspected the reason is a simple one.
And that was a love of the child.
Willie may have hesitated to hurt his own flesh and blood.
We'll be in touch. Thank you for being in touch.
With Willie now a person of interest, the investigators bring him in for questioning.
Obviously, you want to either put him in the homicide or eliminate him.
Although when the interview begins, Willie seems surprised by the news that his stepdaughter and Brenda are dead.
What about the baby?
She's fine.
Thank God.
Willie admits that he and Brenda had problems, but he claims to have moved on from the relationship.
When Brenda and Willie's relationship was ending, he reached back out to his previous wife, Suzanne, and convinced her that they should give it another try. And she let him move back in.
And he said that once Brenda had put him in jail for violating the restraining order, he'd realized that there was no going back.
Okay. So have you seen her since you got out of jail?
Yeah, a couple days ago I went over to a new spot just to get the rest of my stuff.
So you were out there on Sunday night?
Willie denied any involvement in the death of Christine and Brenda.
So where were you that night?
I was with my nephew, Federico.
He said they were in Augusta, away from the area.
I was with him all day.
All right, that's all for now. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
And when the GBI agents contact Federico, he confirms his uncle's story.
He said they drove to Augusta.
But did that mean it was true, or was Willie's nephew just covering for him?
Federico was a lot younger. He was a late teenager.
I believe Federico was actually really scared of Willie Palmer.
With doubts about Willie's alibi, the investigators head back to the tiny crossroads of Videtta.
There's just one store in Videtta, just a little country store, and nothing else.
What's going on?
Good afternoon, sir.
But that one country store had just what the investigators need.
Yeah, I was here at the store when she came in to call the police.
Yeah?
I knew Willie was up to something when he passed by the night before.
The witness put Willie in the area that night.
He saw Willie's car pass by on the night of the murder.
Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents believe they may be one step closer to solving the murders of Brenda Jenkins Palmer and her teenage daughter, Christine.
A clerk at the county store near Brenda's house says he saw Willie's car pass by on the night of the murder.
He's an important witness that put Willie in the area.
Are you sure it was Willie?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Willie.
This was a little small community. Basically, everybody knew each other.
We all attend same churches, the same schools, work in the same places, shop in the same areas.
And the clerk isn't the only one who was pretty sure Willie had committed the murders.
Willie Palmer was a very dangerous man to be around. And that's not from me, that's coming from the people in that area.
However, Willie's reputation around the county wasn't the only reason people thought he was behind the murders.
A lot of people was coming to me and telling me, said, well, he said he was going to kill her.
Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Homicide?
And it wasn't long before those stories started making their way back to the GBI agents investigating the murders.
Willie Palmer said that he was going to kill Brenda Jenkins, and he said, y'all watch me. He said, I mean what I say.
Homicide.
Willie Palmer had been going all over Burke County basically saying he was going to kill Brenda.
He said, I'm going to do it execution style. And you'll see.
And that's exactly what happened.
He was referring to Brenda Jenkins. Yeah.
It was becoming clear that he was responsible for their murders.
And the picture becomes even clearer when a woman named Tammy Howell contacts the investigators and says she has information about the murders.
Homicide.
Tammy worked at a loan company and Brenda was a customer.
About a month ago, Brenda came in. She was nervous acting because she was scared of Willie Palmer. So she had just put him in jail.
She begged her not to tell Willie where she moved to because she did not want him to find her.
She said that she was scared if he got out of jail, he was going to kill her.
Tammy says that Willie had come in a few weeks later.
He said he'd just gotten out of jail.
Willie was at the loan company trying to borrow money for an attorney for dealing with the restraining order that Brenda had taken against him.
And according to Tammy, he was obviously upset about it.
He said something like, the last thing he does is to kill that.
Tammy said that she and her coworkers didn't take Willie too seriously at the time.
He was always a polite person, and that's why we didn't really think anything else because we just thought it was like anger. You know, get angry, you just gonna say something.
They didn't really think he would do it.
Still, she had done as Brenda asked.
The lady at the loan company would not tell Willie Palmer where Brenda was living.
But had Willie somehow found out and followed through on his threats?
A lot of people did know where Brenda lived during that time, and it would almost be virtually impossible to keep someone from finding that out.
Have a seat right over here, please.
Their suspicion of Willie deepening. The investigators ask his ex-wife Suzanne to come to the station to see if she has any information.
My sister Brenda and Suzanne, they knew each other pretty good.
Willie had also told them he reconnected with Suzanne after he split up with Brenda.
So how long were you and Willie married?
10 years.
What happened?
His temper mostly.
Before he married Brenda, there was a history of problems with his first wife.
Suzanne also confirms that after Brenda left Willie, she had decided to give him another chance.
Things were going okay between Suzanne and Willie for a while, but it wasn't long before she remembered why they broke up in the first place.
His temper came back.
Oh yeah, it sure did.
Willie became so irate and he started making all these threats.
I gotta be honest with you. I was relieved when Brenda put him back in jail.
She was actually also very scared of Willie.
And according to Suzanne, she had good reason to be.
He had recently tried to kill her.
I was relieved when Brenda put him back in jail.
Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents have just learned that their lead suspect, Willie Palmer, had tried to kill his ex-wife Suzanne, too.
When did this happen?
The night before Brenda was killed.
Suzanne was in the car with her sister, and Willie rammed into the back of them, trying to run them off the road.
Then he chased us for over a mile till I drove up to that fire hall.
She was petrified.
It was becoming clear that if anybody was going to be responsible for killing Brenda, it was Willie.
All right. Thank you for coming. I'll walk you out.
Hoping to prove it, the investigators decide it's time to lean on Willie's nephew, Frederico Palmer.
We want to talk about the night of Sunday, September 10th.
Frederico was Willie's alibi for the night of the murder.
But he was also the murder plot's weakest link.
I confronted Frederico, telling him, "Frederico, you were there, weren't you?" And he goes, "Yep."
He told me to come ride somewhere with him.
Frederico says Willie had initially told him that they were going to Augusta, which is the same story given to the investigators.
But rather than going to that nightclub, they went toward Videtta.
And he said, "Get me, should he do it?" I said, "No." Should you do what? Shoot Brennan.
Frederico says he tried to talk his uncle out of it, but it was no use.
Willie has his mind made up.
He said, "I got to do it." She trying to take everything he got. Did he mention Christine? Not till we got down there.
According to Frederico, once they drove down the dirt road that led to Brenda's house, Willie stopped the car and then pulled a rifle out from the back seat.
What kind of gun is it? I can't give you. 22, right? Yeah.
A 22 is a match for the shell casings recovered at the crime scene.
Then, after taking the gun, Willie told his nephew to drive.
He told me to go park the car, walk right down there.
Back to the house?
Yeah, I need your help with something.
Okay.
He felt like he didn't have a choice.
It was either you help me or else I will get you.
Frederico says when he walked back down to the house, his uncle was fumbling around with a telephone box outside.
Man, the damn thing won't. Yeah, you try.
So, let me ask you this. Who opened the box up? I opened it. And what'd you do when you got it open? You pull the plug in, pull it up.
He asked Frederico to undo the phone line, which he obliged.
Frederico says that by the time he finished disconnecting the phone line, Willie was already pounding on Brenda's front door.
Brenda, wake up!
To keep the door in. Then he went in, and I heard a shot.
Willie basically raised the rifle and just shot her straight between the eyes.
Then, leaving Christine dead in the front room, Willie proceeded into Brenda's room.
My sister woke up and she grabbed the baby.
She grabbed the baby because she knew that he would never harm the baby.
He was in there talking to her, like, "Give me the baby." And she wouldn't get it to him. So he told me to get the baby from him.
Give me the baby! Give me the baby! Fred, get in here! Get the baby.
His nephew pulled her out of my sister's arm.
Look at me.
Last night, the baby and the brother fell on the floor.
Frederico said he then took the baby out of the residence.
And once he was on the porch, he heard shots.
How many shots did you hear? 2 or 3.
Then, according to Frederico, Willie came out onto the porch and told him to take the baby back inside.
Said, pull it down this animal.
So y'all left the baby laying there, tried to bring everything shot.
Yeah, he pulled it. Yeah.
Frederico says they then went back to Willie's home, changed clothes, and disposed of the evidence.
Frederico told me Willie ended up throwing the clothing that he wore and the .22 rifle in a creek that was located on Highway 305 in Burke County.
It's a compelling story. But is it the truth?
Frederico said they left the baby with Brenda, but that's not where Brenda's sister found her.
That morning, she came in and found Christine on the bed with the baby.
It's conceivable that the baby had crawled into the bed with her half-sister at some point during the night.
So, to verify the rest of his story, GBI agents head to the creek where Frederico claimed Willie disposed of the evidence.
We ended up getting a guy from Burke County Emergency Management Association to come out to the scene where he claimed Willie Palmer threw clothing, shoes, and a rifle. And it wasn't long he found the rifle.
The investigators sent the rifle, a .22, to the state crime lab.
They test-fired the .22 rifle that we recovered out of the creek, compared it to casings inside the residence, and it was a match.
It's more than enough for the investigators to charge Willie with Brenda and Christine's murders.
They understood our pain, and, they wanted justice for my sister just like I did.
This was a death penalty case.
And everything about the case pointed towards Willie.
Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents have arrested 42-year-old Willie Palmer for the murder of his estranged wife Brenda Jenkins Palmer and her teenage daughter.
The prosecutors have announced that they intend to pursue the death penalty.
Despite the seriousness of the charges, Willie refuses to talk.
That's the coldest man I have ever been involved with trying to talk to in my career.
But will his silence matter?
The prosecutors also charged Willie's nephew, Frederico Palmer, for his role in the murders.
The district attorney felt like Frederico was as guilty as Willie, and I do too. His own actions that he admitted put him right in the middle of it, and everything he said fit. There was nothing that he told me that I could disprove.
And now the prosecutors need Frederico to tell his story to a jury.
To have an eyewitness co-conspirator testimony, you don't get that a lot. And so his testimony was extremely important.
They offered Frederico life without parole rather than a death sentence if he would testify.
He agreed to plead guilty and testify against his uncle.
When Willie goes on trial in April of 1997, the prosecutors portray him as a man with a vendetta.
It was because of anger, wrath, a need for revenge.
Brenda got him locked up after he violated his restraining order, and she was also fighting him in court.
When they divorced, she wanted his property.
Willie's mind was made up.
We don't know exactly how he found out where she lived, but a lot of people did know. And I think that's how word got back to Willie.
Then, on the night of September 10th, Willie and his nephew Frederico snuck up Brenda's long, remote drive.
Frederico undid the phone line.
Willie kicked the door in, shot Christine in the head.
He then went in Brenda's room, and Brenda had the baby in her arms.
Fred, get in here!
So Willie told Frederico, get the baby from her.
No!
Frederico got the baby, and then Willie shot Brenda twice.
Basically, she was executed.
It's just, gruesome.
But despite strong evidence and his nephew testifying against him, the prosecutors are still unable to convict Willie.
The first trial was a mistrial.
The defense claimed the DA's office did not provide one of the statements I took from Frederico, which in fact they did have it, because I found it in their discovery notes, which is what is given to the defense. So that means they had it, but they claimed they didn't, and the judge called it mistrial.
2 more trials followed, but the prosecutors could never make a conviction stick.
It seemed like there were a number of issues. I think the main reason was being tried in Burke County, where everybody knew each other. They just couldn't find a jury that could agree.
A juror's insight is so different from my insight or a defense attorney's insight. And this was a death penalty case. It was a big decision.
Then the next trial, there was the issue of Mr. Palmer's intellectual disability or whether he had one.
Since he was never acquitted, Willie remains in prison the entire time.
He was not going to get bond. They send him back to Burke County Jail, where he remains until he's tried again.
But the family and the prosecution are determined to get justice for Brenda and Christine.
I knew what the right verdict was. I knew we had the right guy.
And in 2023, almost 30 years after the murders, Willie stands trial for a 4th time.
When we retried him again, the death penalty was taken off the table.
And this time, the prosecution finally gets a conviction that sticks.
They find him guilty on all counts.
Willie got life without parole.
After such a long wait, it's a satisfying outcome.
He won't never get out of prison.
He won't do this to nobody else.
But while justice has been served, the murders of Brenda and her 15-year-old daughter Christine remain a senseless tragedy.
These 2 individuals did not deserve to have their life end.
Brenda was always doing everything she can to make life better for everybody that she could.
Christine never harmed anyone in her life.
She would have been, 45 or so now, having a family of her own.
There's no reason for this to occur like it did. None.
League City stands quietly between the bustling urban centers of Houston and Galveston, yet during the 1980s, its geographic reality was entirely different from the modern landscape recognizable to commuters and residents today. Back then, the region surrounding Calder Road was defined by isolation, rough dirt paths choked with thick brush, sprawling oil field installations, and vast expanses of neglected land far removed from the watchful eyes of growing neighborhoods. This striking remoteness transformed the area into a notorious black hole for accountability, where perpetrators could easily drive a vehicle off the main thoroughfares, slip deep into the concealing vegetation, and vanish completely from the sight of any potential witnesses. Once a human body was abandoned within these dense thickets, it could easily lie undiscovered for days, weeks, months, or even years, shielded by the sprawling wilderness and the sheer lack of foot traffic. The Federal Bureau of Investigation would later designate this specific cluster of discoveries as the Calder Road killings, categorizing them as a grim subset within a much wider geographic expanse universally feared as the Texas Killing Fields. It is crucial to understand that the Texas Killing Fields does not refer to a single enclosed crime scene or a solitary patch of wasteland. Rather, the term encompasses a vast, brooding corridor stretching alongside Interstate 45, where over the course of multiple decades, the remains of numerous vulnerable women and young girls have been unearthed under mysterious and terrifying circumstances. Within this broader expanse, however, the Calder Road site holds a uniquely chilling distinction due to the 4 specific female victims whose identities and fates have been formally linked by federal authorities. The environment itself acted as an unwitting accomplice to violence, providing natural barriers, concealing shadows, and an eerie silence that emboldened wrongdoers who operated with the chilling confidence that they would never be unmasked. As local populations slowly expanded and developers began to push outward, the veil masking the dark history of Calder Road began to lift, revealing the devastating human cost buried beneath the overgrown brush and forgotten dirt roads. Investigators walking these desolate tracks decades later could still sense the haunting atmosphere of a place where secrets were easily buried and justice remained elusive for generations, turning a simple stretch of Texas landscape into a permanent monument of unsolved tragedy and enduring mystery. Heidi Marie Villarreal was a vibrant young bartender living and working in League City, full of life and deeply embedded within the social fabric of her local community, until the fateful year of 1983 when her existence abruptly shattered into an enduring mystery. According to comprehensive federal investigative files compiled over decades, she was last seen alive within the municipal boundaries of League City during that turbulent year, carrying out her routine daily activities with no inkling of the dark fate awaiting her just beyond the town limits. Initially, her sudden disappearance was handled by local law enforcement agencies as a standard missing persons case, prompting anxious family members and concerned friends to distribute flyers, knock on doors, and harbor desperate hopes that she would eventually return safe and sound. However, as weeks stretched into months with absolute radio silence and 0 verifiable sightings, the investigation underwent a grim and inevitable transformation, pivoting definitively from a missing person inquiry into a full-scale homicide investigation. The chilling reality of her disappearance crystallized in 1984 when her skeletal remains were finally discovered discarded within the dense, unforgiving rural brushlands situated in close proximity to Calder Road, forever altering the psychological landscape of the surrounding community. The violent end of Heidi's life quickly emerged as one of the very first undeniable warning signs indicating that the isolated tracks sprawling between Houston and Galveston were serving as a clandestine dumping ground for violent predators operating with total impunity. At the time of this grim discovery, local police departments and forensic experts lacked both the modern technological tools and the overarching investigative framework required to understand that Heidi's remains would tragically represent only the opening chapter of a much larger and more terrifying pattern of violence. Because advanced genetic genealogy and robust DNA databases were still decades away from realization, investigators were severely handicapped in their efforts to process the physical evidence left behind at the scene, forcing them to rely heavily on traditional police work and circumstantial clues that ultimately led to frustrating dead ends. Consequently, Heidi and her tragic fate became an early symbol of the profound vulnerabilities faced by young women navigating the lonely corridors of 1980s Texas, where an unexpected turn down the wrong road could lead to an irreversible tragedy. The formal identification of her remains was achieved painstakingly through early dental records, a testament to the limitations of forensic science during an era when establishing a positive ID often depended entirely on matching dental charts rather than extracting genetic blueprints from microscopic biological samples. As news of her murder rippled through League City, a palpable sense of fear settled over the residents, though few could fathom the full extent of the nightmare unfolding right in their own backyard. The investigators working the case at the time found themselves staring into a vast abyss of unknowns, possessing a recovered body but virtually no substantive leads regarding who might have targeted the young bartender or why her path crossed with such unimaginable cruelty. Decades would pass while her family endured the agonizing limbo of unresolved grief, watching as subsequent discoveries cast an even darker shadow over the already infamous Calder Road location. The memory of Heidi Fye remained a haunting reminder of innocence lost, permanently anchoring the beginning of the Texas killing fields mythology to a specific human face rather than abstract statistical data. Her tragic journey from a lively local worker to a forgotten statistic in a rural ditch underscores the devastating efficiency with which predators, could exploit the geographical isolation of League City during an era before digital surveillance and widespread forensic awareness transformed the landscape of criminal investigations. Ultimately, the story of Heidi Fye stands as the foundational pillar of the Calder Road inquiries, a heartbreaking catalyst that unwittingly opened the gateway to a multi-decade pursuit of truth, accountability, and justice for women whose lives were stolen in the shadows of the Lone Star State. Laura Lynn Miller was just 16 years old, a young teenager who had recently transitioned to a new chapter of her life by moving alongside her family into the quiet community of League City, completely unaware of the lurking dangers that would soon swallow her promising future whole. On the 10th day of September in the unforgettable year of 1984, Laura stepped away from the safety of her family home to visit a nearby neighborhood establishment for the seemingly mundane purpose of utilizing a public telephone, an ordinary daily action that would tragically transform into one of the most agonizing moments in the entire history of American true crime lore. She had fully intended to complete her quick errand and return straight back to the warmth and security of her family, carrying the typical everyday concerns of an adolescent girl navigating the complexities of a brand new town and high school environment. However, destiny intervened in the most brutal manner imaginable, and Laura never made it back through her front door, plunging her loved ones immediately into a terrifying nightmare of uncertainty and desperate searching. Her family mobilized without a moment of hesitation, scouring every corner of the neighborhood, distributing flyers, and urging local authorities to take immediate action as the terrifying realization set in that a young girl had vanished into thin air. Law enforcement agencies launched extensive inquiries, but they were immediately stymied by a complete lack of physical clues, actionable leads, or digital footprints that could point them toward her whereabouts. Her father, Tim Miller, stood at the absolute forefront of this agonizing ordeal, refusing to accept the possibility that his beloved daughter could simply disappear from the face of the earth without a trace or an explanation. Months bled into a grueling year, and the investigation settled into a frustrating stalemate marked by false alarms, dead ends, and a profound societal silence that felt increasingly deafening to a grieving family desperate for answers. No direct witnesses came forward to provide a comprehensive narrative detailing the final moments of her life, and no concrete explanations ever materialized regarding where she could have possibly traveled after stepping away from that fateful public telephone. Nearly 17 long and agonizing months crawled by in a blur of sleepless nights and unrelenting anguish until a truly horrific breakthrough finally shattered the stagnation on the 2nd day of February in 1986, when searchers stumbled upon a grim reality hidden deep within the treacherous brush of the Calder Road area. The skeletal remains of young Laura Miller were formally unearthed, bringing a devastating end to the endless vigils maintained by her family, while simultaneously opening the floodgates to a terrifying new realm of investigative horror. Yet the nightmare uncovered that day at Calder Road extended far beyond the long-awaited recovery of Laura, because as investigators meticulously combed the surrounding terrain for additional evidence, they realized they were standing in the midst of a multi-victim depository of death. Positioned in chilling proximity to where Laura lay resting in the dirt, the searching teams made a second harrowing discovery that nobody anticipated: another human body, completely devoid of identification papers, personal belongings, or any immediate markers that could reveal who she was or how she arrived at such a desolate location. This second unfortunate soul possessed no visible history in the local police databases, no frantic family members standing at police barricades demanding answers, and no immediate connection to the surrounding community, instantly reducing her in the official records to the tragic and anonymous designation of a Jane Doe. Two distinct human bodies recovered from the exact same secluded geographical area on that single freezing February day in 1986 irrevocably altered the trajectory of the investigation, transforming what had initially been treated as an isolated missing persons tragedy into a glaring indication of systemic, predatory violence thriving in the shadows of League City. The juxtaposition of a known local teenager who had been sought by her heartbroken father for nearly a year and a half alongside a completely unidentified adult woman created an overwhelming sense of dread among the detectives tasked with unraveling the mysteries of the wasteland. It became chillingly apparent that the secluded pathways of Calder Road were harboring secrets far darker and more expansive than anyone had previously dared to imagine, serving as a silent graveyard where the marginalized and the vulnerable could be discarded with absolute impunity. For Tim Miller, the discovery of his daughters' remains marked not a conclusion, but rather the ignition of an unbreakable lifelong crusade that would redefine his existence and eventually lead him to establish groundbreaking rescue and recovery networks to aid other families suffering through identical nightmares. Meanwhile, the presence of the unnamed Jane Doe lying just feet away posed an entirely separate, monumental challenge for forensic investigators who lacked the advanced genetic tools of the modern era, leaving them staring down at a faceless victim whose true identity would remain locked away behind a veil of complete silence for over 3 decades. The sheer emotional weight of that February afternoon in 1986 reverberated deeply across the entire state of Texas, stamping the Calder Road site into the collective consciousness as a place of profound sorrow where innocence was systematically extinguished and justice remained an elusive, distant dream. As the forensic teams gathered their grim findings and transported the remains away from the overgrown thickets, the community was left to grapple with the agonizing realization that the dirt roads flanking the highway were concealing horrors that defied human comprehension, cementing Laura Miller's tragic legacy as both a beloved daughter lost too soon and an eternal symbol of resilience in the ongoing battle against hidden predators. For more than 3 decades following her grim discovery in the overgrown wilderness of Calder Road, the unfortunate female recovered alongside young Laura Miller existed within the labyrinthine archives of criminal investigations under nothing more than a temporary and impersonal designation, quietly cataloged as a faceless Jane Doe. Throughout all those sprawling years, she possessed no grieving family members to loudly champion her cause in the media, no frantic relatives coming forward to plaster her face across national television broadcasts, and no complete personal history that could offer detectives a meaningful starting point for their stagnant inquiries. There were no accessible records detailing her childhood, no employment files reflecting her daily routines, and no social circles offering even a whisper of insight regarding how she might have crossed paths with a predator in the desolate stretches of League City. She remained simply an isolated collection of skeletal remains preserved in a cold evidence locker, a haunting embodiment of absolute anonymity discovered in a landscape specifically chosen by wrongdoers because it offered complete and total erasure from human memory. This profound lack of foundational background information rendered the investigative process exceptionally arduous, creating a nearly insurmountable brick wall that blocked every conventional avenue traditionally utilized by homicide detectives to identify victims and track down perpetrators. The investigators understood with absolute certainty that they were dealing with a deeply malicious homicide, yet they stood paralyzed by the frustrating reality that they did not even know who the victim was, where she originated from, what city she had called home, or precisely when she had vanished from the waking world. Without an established identity, every single investigative pathway that typically relies on interviewing coworkers, checking personal correspondence, or retracing final known movements was effectively locked away, leaving law enforcement agencies staring into a vast and impenetrable void. Decades continued to slip away in a relentless march of time, bringing rapid technological advancements and societal shifts, while the anonymous woman from Calder Road stubbornly retained her silent status as a permanent fixture of unsolved mystery. Yet, despite the agonizing passage of time and the inevitable turnover of investigative personnel who inherited the aging cold case binders, her file was never intentionally discarded or forgotten by dedicated analysts who recognized that every human being deserves to have their true name restored. The turning point of this decades-long enigma finally materialized in the remarkable year of 2019, when modern forensic science had evolved far beyond the primitive limitations of the 1980s, enabling specialized investigators to re-examine physical evidence utilizing revolutionary techniques that had previously belonged exclusively in the realm of science fiction. Through the application of sophisticated genetic genealogy, familial DNA matching, and exhaustive digital database comparisons, scientists successfully bridged a gap of more than 30 years, piercing through the dense fog of anonymity to finally reveal the true human identity hidden behind the bureaucratic label of Jane Doe. The woman who had laid silently in an unmarked grave and cold storage lockers for generations was formally identified as Audrey Lee Cook, a revelation that instantly breathed historical reality and personal context back into a life that had been ruthlessly extinguished and discarded in the Texas wilderness. According to detailed biographical records subsequently released by federal authorities, Audrey Lee Cook was born on the 25th day of November in 1955 in the vibrant city of Memphis, Tennessee, establishing her roots far away from the desolate Texas highways where her journey would ultimately meet its tragic conclusion. Investigators delving into her newly uncovered background discovered that Audrey possessed a diverse practical skill set, having previously worked as a skilled mechanic and maintained employment with various industrial companies operating throughout the sprawling Houston metropolitan area during her adult life. Based on comprehensive forensic evaluations and historical timelines, she was estimated to be approximately 30 years of age at the time her life was violently stolen, placing her squarely in the prime of her youth when she encountered the forces of darkness lurking along the Interstate 45 corridor. The last verified communications indicating she was still alive and interacting with the world placed her final known contact with family members back in the chillingly specific timeframe of December 1985, aligning disturbingly close to the fateful date when her remains were unearthed in February of 1986. The successful positive identification of Audrey Lee Cook represented far more than a mere bureaucratic milestone or a checked box in a cold case ledger. Rather, it fundamentally transformed the entire psychological and structural dynamic of the ongoing Calder Road investigation by granting her back the most fundamental human dignity, her rightful name. Furthermore, this long-awaited breakthrough cracked open a vital and entirely fresh strategic direction for detectives, providing them with tangible historical anchors that allowed them to meticulously reconstruct the intricate tapestry of her everyday existence, charting the apartment she rented, the garages where she turned wrenches, the friends she confided in, and the specific geographic locations she frequented in the months leading up to her disappearance. Armed with a real name and a verifiable personal timeline, law enforcement agencies could finally begin the arduous process of untangling the web of relationships and circumstances that ultimately led Audrey to cross paths with a monster in the shadows of League City, transforming a completely frozen ghost story into an active, breathing pursuit of historical justice that honored her memory and defied the anonymity intended by her killer. 5 long and agonizing years had slowly passed since the horrifying discoveries of Laura Miller and the unidentified woman known as Audrey Cook on the desolate grounds of Calder Road in League City. By the time the calendar turned to the year 1991, the local community had already been thoroughly traumatized by the dark reputation that had firmly attached itself to this isolated stretch of wilderness. Despite the heightened awareness and the lingering fear that permeated the surrounding neighborhoods, the overgrown fields and forgotten dirt pathways continued to hold tightly onto their terrifying status as a clandestine dumping ground for predators. In that fateful year of 1991, the inescapable nightmare unexpectedly flared back to life when another human body was tragically discovered discarded within the very same notorious geographical area. This macabre revelation sent an immediate shockwave of dread through the ranks of local law enforcement agencies and terrified residents alike, confirming their deepest and most unspoken fears that the horrors of the Texas killing fields were far from over. Law enforcement officials rushed to the heavily overgrown scene, securing the perimeter and meticulously combing through the thick vegetation, only to face a devastatingly familiar and frustrating reality. Just as they had experienced with previous discoveries in this cursed landscape, the investigators were confronted with human remains completely stripped of any identifying documentation, personal belongings, or distinct physical markers that could provide an immediate name. The deceased woman was tragically reduced to a clinical mystery, an unknown entity discovered in a landscape specifically chosen by perpetrators for its ability to swallow secrets and erase human identities without leaving a single trace behind. The local authorities were once again forced to initiate a grueling homicide investigation from a position of absolute disadvantage, possessing the tragic physical evidence of a brutal crime but lacking the most fundamental starting point of any successful murder inquiry. Without a name, a confirmed residence, or any known associates to interview, the newly discovered victim was officially entered into the expanding police records under the temporary and impersonal placeholder of Janet Doe. This administrative label, while necessary for the bureaucratic management of cold cases, served as a heartbreaking reminder of the profound isolation and total anonymity that characterized the final moments of her life in the desolate Texas wilderness. Once again, detectives found themselves staring at a metaphorical brick wall, grappling with the identical investigative paralysis that had plagued the earlier stages of the Calder Road inquiries. They possessed a physical body that demanded justice, yet they were completely devoid of the crucial identity required to trace the victim's final steps, understand her social connections, or identify the individuals who might have wished her harm. The absence of a known identity effectively severed all traditional avenues of police work, rendering it impossible to investigate her workplace relationships, examine her personal correspondence, or interview family members who might have noticed suspicious behavior or unusual acquaintances in the days leading up to her disappearance. Consequently, the harrowing case of Janet Doe was forced into an agonizing state of suspended animation, joining the ever-growing stack of unsolved mysteries accumulating dust in the evidence rooms of Texas law enforcement departments. As the weeks slowly morphed into months and the months inexorably transformed into years, the physical files documenting her tragic end remained largely untouched, not out of malice or neglect from the detectives, but simply because there were absolutely no new leads to pursue or new stones to turn over in a case completely devoid of historical context. Throughout the remainder of the 1990s and well into the new millennium, the haunting anonymity of Janet Doe persisted, standing as a silent testament to the severe technological limitations that handicapped criminal investigations during that specific era of law enforcement. The dedicated detectives who originally worked the grim scene at Calder Road eventually retired, passing the stagnant case files down to a new generation of investigators who inherited the same profound frustrations and seemingly insurmountable obstacles. However, the inexorable passage of time, which initially seemed to act as an impenetrable shield protecting the perpetrator, eventually brought about a revolutionary transformation in the realm of forensic science. As the years progressed, the slow and methodical advancement of genetic technology began to unlock miraculous new possibilities, shifting the investigative landscape from reliant on physical descriptions and dental records to the microscopic and undeniable truths hidden within human DNA. The profound evolution of forensic genealogy and the establishment of comprehensive digital genetic databases eventually empowered cold case investigators to return to the forgotten files of the past with a renewed sense of hope and an arsenal of sophisticated scientific tools that their predecessors could only dream of utilizing. By applying these cutting-edge techniques to the carefully preserved biological evidence collected from the Calder Road victim decades earlier, scientific experts embarked on a complex and painstaking journey through ancestral bloodlines and familial connections. This miraculous scientific endeavor was driven by an unwavering commitment to restoring dignity to the forgotten, demonstrating how the sheer persistence of law enforcement combined with modern technological marvels could slowly unravel even the most tightly guarded secrets buried in the Texas soil. The relentless scientific pursuit ultimately culminated in a monumental breakthrough that shattered decades of agonizing silence, successfully stripping away the impersonal moniker of Janet Doe and revealing the true human being who had been lost to the darkness. The victim discovered in 1991 was finally and officially identified as Donna Gonsalon Prudhomme, a revelation that breathed profound historical reality and personal context back into a life that had been violently interrupted and subsequently forgotten by the broader world. Official federal investigative records detailing her newly uncovered background indicated that Donna was born in the year 1957 in the coastal industrial city of Port Arthur, Texas, establishing her roots within the diverse and complex cultural landscape of the state. As investigators meticulously reconstructed the timeline of her existence, they discovered that she had lived a somewhat transient lifestyle, establishing residences in various different communities spread across the vast Texas geography. Her historical footprint indicated that she had spent significant portions of her life residing in the state capital of Austin, as well as the coastal communities of Seabrook and Nassau Bay, painting a picture of a woman who moved frequently and experienced different facets of the regional environment. Based on the chronological alignment of her life events and the condition of her recovered remains, forensic experts and investigators concluded that she was approximately 34 years old at the time her life was brutally taken from her in the desolate brush of Calder Road. The formal restoration of her identity represented a profound victory for the forensic scientists and cold case detectives who had refused to let her memory fade into permanent obscurity, fundamentally altering the trajectory of the investigation by providing a tangible personal history to explore. However, the miraculous identification of Donna Gonsalon Prudhomme also unearthed a heartbreaking narrative of familial estrangement and enduring sorrow that deeply magnified the emotional devastation surrounding her unsolved murder. According to detailed journalistic reports published by regional newspapers, Donna was not merely an isolated individual drifting through the world without connections. She was a mother who had brought 2 sons into the world before her life was violently cut short. Following a period of transition during which she departed from her established life in the Beaumont area, the heavy responsibility of raising her 2 boys fell upon the shoulders of their loving grandparents, who stepped in to provide stability in the wake of her mysterious absence. For an agonizingly long period stretching across multiple decades, her extended family and her growing children lived in a continuous state of profound uncertainty, completely oblivious to the horrific fate that had befallen her in the isolated fields of League City. They were forced to navigate the complex emotional landscape of her disappearance without any concrete answers, oscillating between the fading hope that she might one day return and the creeping dread that she had fallen victim to an unspeakable tragedy. They survived year after year, bearing the heavy burden of an unexplained void in their family tree, never knowing that the woman they loved had been lying silently in an unmarked forensic grave under a temporary name while the rest of the world moved forward. The eventual notification provided by law enforcement officials, while finally delivering the ultimate truth, simultaneously inflicted a fresh wave of unimaginable grief upon a family that had already endured decades of torturous ambiguity regarding her ultimate destiny. The agonizing reality that her children had to grow into adulthood, navigating the myriad challenges and milestones of life without the presence or even the basic knowledge of their mother's true fate, stands as one of the most profoundly tragic elements of this entire sprawling criminal saga. Every birthday, every graduation, and every significant family gathering was inevitably haunted by the lingering question of her whereabouts, a question that remained entirely unanswered until the miraculous intervention of modern genetic science finally pierced the veil of mystery. The revelation of her identity allowed her family to finally begin the arduous and painful process of proper mourning, replacing the endless agonizing speculation with a definitive, albeit horrific, conclusion that allowed them to properly honor her memory. Furthermore, knowing that Donna was 34 years old when she died and had lived in locations like Seabrook and Nassau Bay provided law enforcement agencies with a critically important geographical framework to begin retracing her final movements and identifying the individuals she may have interacted with during the twilight of her life. The detectives were now tasked with the monumental challenge of diving deep into historical records, searching for forgotten acquaintances, former landlords, or past employers who might possess even the slightest fragment of memory regarding her activities in the late 1980s and early 1990s. This renewed investigative momentum highlighted the immense power of forensic genealogy, not just as a tool for identification, but as a vital catalyst for generating new leads in cold cases that had long been considered hopelessly unsolvable by conventional law enforcement standards. The transformation of Janet Doe into Donna Gonsalon Prudhomme served as a powerful reminder that behind every unidentified victim file lies a complex human story, a network of grieving relatives, and a desperate need for absolute truth and accountability. As the investigators continued to piece together the fragmented puzzle of her final days, the chilling reality of the Calder Road location became even more apparent, solidifying its reputation as a terrifying vortex where vulnerable women were systematically erased from existence. The successful identification of the fourth victim marked a pivotal chapter in the overarching narrative of the Texas killing fields, demonstrating that the passage of time could no longer be relied upon by perpetrators as a guaranteed shield against justice, and that the forgotten victims of the past would eventually be given a voice to demand the truth.